The BlokeBusters podcast is proud to be a member of the Pod Bros Network. You can find us, as well as other fine shows such as The Guy Huddle, Language of Bromance, and Dave's Nerd Compendium at podbros.com, and on Twitter at PodBrosNetwork. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the BlokeBusters podcast.
Welcome to episode 57 of the BlokeBusters podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Paul.
And today we will be talking about the recently released documentary Back in Time, and also the original Back to the Future film and subsequent sequels on a whole, kind of what those movies mean to us, and just touching on favorite bits here and there.
Yes, this isn't going to be a 3-hour retrospective of the entire trilogy, so don't worry there.
It will come in slightly shorter than the runtime of those films, hopefully.
Alright, and this is where we would normally do nuts and bolts for the film. I mean, first, I may as well get these out of the way as well. Twitter, at BlokeBusters, Facebook.com/BlokeBusters. If you want to email us, blokebusterpodcast@gmail.com. Yes, there is no S in that. And then we also have a website, blokebusters.webs.com, and I think it's up to date. You can double check that if you want.
Alright.
And of course you might want to have a visit to michaeljfox.org, because, you know, why wouldn't you want to donate to a worthy cause and find out as much as you can about it?
Absolutely.
So yeah, we would normally do cast and directions and
yes,
whatever,
being a documentary, especially one that's been released on Netflix, a little hard to track.
Yeah, and I was actually, just quickly before we get into anything else, I was surprised at that. I went onto the website going, okay, so it's released now, we're gonna sit down, watch it, and then talk about it. We can watch it on Amazon Video, you can watch it on iTunes, it's on Netflix. And I saw it's on Netflix. What? It free?
Yeah, I think they should have at least staggered it a few weeks to let it make some on-demand money. But
I mean, there is the argument of people can watch it on Netflix and then give them money if they enjoyed it or if they want to help out. Which,
I mean, they could have even done stream it for $5 or whatever, and it goes to Team Fox or something like that. But I'm sure the people in charge had a good deal. So yes, I'm not running the marketing for it. So I'm sure they did the best they could.
Yes. So the only real nuts and bolts that we decided we'd actually look up is how much the original trilogy made at the box office.
All right, do we want to have me guess?
Okay.
These are 1986 to 1990 dollars.
So yes, the first one was released July 3rd, 1985. The second, November 22nd, 1989. And the third, May 24th, 1990.
Okay. So
and the production budget for all three films came together at $99 million.
$99 million. Okay. And this is domestic or worldwide you have?
I have both.
Okay.
I was going to give the worldwide.
Okay. So I'm going to try to guess domestic because I have no idea. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I would say all three. I would say $140 million.
$140 million. You are not right.
Big surprise. I'm trying to think, what's a successful movie in 1985, 86? About $40 million.
I will tell you, that is $8 million more than the average made per film.
Wow. Okay. Better be low than high.
The domestic box office for all three films is $397.9
well, good on million. You, Back to the Future. That was just a hair off.
Just a little. The worldwide box office for the three comes in at $940,800,093.
Okay. Yeah, so it's up there. Okay.
Yes, it made its money back.
A little bit, and continues to do so.
Yeah.
As we will get into. So I guess we just want to kind of talk about the films themselves before we get into the documentary.
Yeah, because at the very least you should hear where we're coming from.
Exactly, some sort of reference point here.
Yeah.
I don't know, when did this film first cross your...
Well, I can't give you an exact timeline, unfortunately, but I get the feeling that maybe I was 10-ish around that time, and what would have happened, given that I was 2 years old when the third film came out, is I probably saw all three very close together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was, let's say, 7 years younger than Marty McFly is, so I didn't have the teenage angst that he would have had at the time. But yeah, I remember watching it, and it was possibly one of the first real sci-fi film. I'm not counting Jurassic Park.
No.
In that's a different kettle of fish. But probably one of the first sci-fi films that I remember sitting down and watching and getting into that aspect of it. And it was such a well-rounded story.
It really was, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't fault the first film much, and I may be in the minority. I genuinely don't know, in that I enjoyed the second film almost as much, and the third film pretty much as much. I prefer, I would say, Back to the Future 1, Back to the Future 3, Back to the Future 2 is my order of preference.
So you're I think most people kind of view it as like the Matrix trilogy, where it was a steady decline in quality.
Yeah, for some reason, even though I don't like Westerns, I prefer the Western Back to the Future over the futuristic Back to the Future.
Or the now in the past
Yes.
Back to the Future, which is also where we're coming to you from, the past.
Yes, we're coming to you from the past, which is still
your present.
which is still the future of the Back to the Future Part 2.
And
where
you'll be listening to this in the future.
Yes.
Everyone got that? Okay.
Yes. Got it good.
All right. I have to think, once again, it's hard to pinpoint an exact date, but I had to have seen it at home on TV. Because being born in '82, I was not going to the theater when I was 4. I've already discussed. I didn't get out to the movies really till I was about 11, 12.
Right.
So I'm sure it was a made-for-TV broadcast. That commercials and the like. I'm sure that was the first way I saw it, and then I know we had it on videotape. And then I remember, I had to have seen it in probably 88 or something for the first time. 89,
okay.
89, because I remember only having a short wait till 2 came out.
Right.
I remember, we did have the video that we'll maybe talk about later, where it said to be continued.
Yeah.
And I was pretty excited. Ooh, okay. And so, yeah, I was able to see 2, I think just a few months later, and then had to wait just about half a year till 3 came out. But the first film, kind of along with what you were saying, it was the first time I realized what movies could be, as far as the sci-fi, the sort of kind of magical fantasy ride it takes you on. It was just such, like you said, a well-rounded adventure film, and just so well written and funny, and so many quotable moments, and that we still in my daily conversation, it'll pop in here and there.
Yeah,
it's just one of those that has really stood the test of time very well.
Yeah, surprisingly. I mean, a lot of things actually work if you go into the past, I think. Because obviously, if you go into the past, then the reason it's dated is because it's supposed to be. Whereas going into the future, as with the second one, since we've now gone past the date, it's very dated because it's like, oh, that's what they thought it might be like. So, yeah, it does very well, I think, because they managed to get the feel of that time because it was filmed at that time, and then they went back in time to a time period that is very well documented, and everyone was able to recreate very well, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. Yeah, more with that. That's where I was going to go with that, but
and I'm glad you added more.
Yes,
I couldn't agree with that.
I couldn't agree. No, I disagree. But yeah, I just really loved this movie. Like, I loved it then. I love it now. And you might be saying, Brian, you hate time travel movies. Yes, time travel. Let's not get into that, Paul. Let's not start drawing on chalkboards here.
Really? You don't want to?
Because I will go cross-eyed. And I think even you could admit the logic in their rules that they set up are pretty much bullshit. But despite that, as an adventure film, as like just a friendship film between Doc and Marty and his relationship with his parents, all of that stuff, I think it just is so wonderful.
Yeah. No, yeah, really good. And I'll grant you that it's the first time we saw the specific rules of time travel that are set in place in this film, and I was fine with that. I would probably argue that the idea of the ripple effect doesn't make sense, because let's assume that you change the past somehow. So you've stabbed your father. So chances are he's going to die, and that means that you're not going to exist.
It's the grandfather paradox.
Yeah. One of two things should happen at that point if we're going to go with generally accepted time travel thing. The first is that the paradox will happen, and you will cease to exist, which means that you are now stuck in an infinite loop where time will reverse, and then your grandfather won't have been, or your father won't have been stabbed, and you'll grow up, go back and stab him, at which point you won't have existed, so time will reverse. So that's the paradox. Or he's been stabbed, but you have now created an alternate timeline, but you are going to stay there now. Like that, you are now in this timeline.
I want a DeLorean to go to the future right now. 2 minutes from now.
to get past this thing. So there's that. I think it's generally accepted that, let's say you did what Marty did, any changes would be instantaneous, or it wouldn't affect him because it's just alternate universe type thing now. So the actual slowly fading from time thing.
Yes, the whole photo, people disappearing on the photo.
Which I think it also completely ignores that in one of the other films, in that something either happens immediately or something changes out of order. So it doesn't quite work. Not having seen the films in a few years, I can't give you specifics.
Yes, I just having seen the documentary, I very much want to watch the first film right now, but I don't believe I did have the trilogy somewhere, but I don't know. Who knows?
I know I have it, so I think next weekend I'll be putting them in.
Oh, yeah.
Giving them a play.
Run them back to back to back.
I might have to.
I might, yes. Keep them going.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will be not long behind you on that. I don't know. Should we talk about, any issues that other than the time travel for me,
right?
Things you didn't like about the franchise, or?
I don't know if I had any real huge problems other than what I just mentioned with the time travel logic, and I will say at the first time I watched it, I probably didn't have any trouble with it because I wasn't as educated and informed about that stuff.
Just ignore it.
Yeah, you run with it while it's on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I had any real issues with it. I didn't notice that the Jennifer actress changed.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't notice that stuff generally anyway, so that's not really a thing that you can take away. Everyone else probably noticed, and I just didn't because I don't. But yeah, I don't think I had any real trouble with the plot line, although I do agree with, there's another podcast I've been listening to where they're doing their own Back to the Future retrospectives, and they mentioned that Marty in the first film is, he's Marty. And then in the second and third film, he suddenly will respond if anyone calls him yellow or chicken. Like, he gains this incredible insecurity. We're not there. He's the lead guitarist and I guess singer, even though we never see him sing outside of the Johnny B. Good, of a band, and yet if someone calls him chicken, like, all bets are off. Like, it doesn't seem to fit.
There's got to be some psychological damage there where, I don't know. He's very young. And so
I guess, yeah.
Beaten with a chicken, or I don't know.
With a yellow chicken.
with a yellow chicken. And so it was a rubber yellow chicken that was brutally beaten by George.
Sure.
Sure, yeah. Why not? Yeah. We'll make up our own backstory there. I remember, just kind of going back to first impressions. I remember, like, just wanting, like, a Doc Brown in my life, like, at the time. Like, and I guess we can start touching on the documentary a little bit. But, like they mentioned in there, it wasn't weird at the time to have a friendship with a much older gentleman. Now that's really, something fishy's got to be going on there. But to have that kind of mentorship from an eccentric but still well-educated person, that does actually, look out for his well-being, even though he does, send him in a very risky time machine.
Yeah.
Yes. After he tested out with Einstein, of course. But
yeah, and I get the feeling that he was very sure that it would work, because I don't think he would willingly put Einstein in the time machine if he wasn't, let's say, 99.9% sure that it was going to work.
Exactly. I don't know, I just loved, I think I loved him more than I did Marty, like, as far as a character in that world. Most of the comedy for me comes from his reactions and his exposition and him wearing the giant, mind reading device.
The colander, basically, on the
head.
head.
Colander on the head. It's Christopher Lloyd. He's always hilarious. I just remember him, watching the show Taxi. I don't know if you ever watched that.
I have not, but I knew he was on it.
So good. I mean, that show was awesome. But I just love me some Christopher Lloyd. Love the clock tower. Clock tower scene.
Yeah. Now there's fan theories all over the place for a couple of these things. Number one, how Marty and Doc ever became friends. And someone that I was talking to a while ago, I have no idea.
Oh my god, if you're going to say what I'm going to say, I'm going to be blown away.
John, I have no idea, actually. There are so many of these that could be completely different. They were of the opinion that because Marty went back in time and talked to that Doc, that Doc then specifically looked for Marty, which created that friendship. The idea kind of being the not the grandfather paradox, but the Ouroboros thing, where it self-creates all the time, so they were always going to be friends. However, I'm of the opinion that what happened was that maybe Marty did some odd jobs or something for Doc, and that's how it started. And then I listened to a brief interview with, and I don't know if it was Bob Gale or Robert Zemeckis or something like that, and they basically said that was the case, because they always assumed that one day maybe Marty broke into Doc Brown's house, because he was always told, don't go anywhere near Doc Brown, he's a crazy old man, and being a teenager he's like, I'm going to go near Doc Brown's house. And so kind of broke in, and because Marty was the only person he'd ever met that was genuinely interested in the stuff he was doing, that led to the friendship. That
could actually make how they're doing like the backstory superhero TV shows. That wouldn't be a bad show. Kind of all the projects they worked together before the DeLorean time machine.
and half of them probably not working.
Not working. Yeah, you could get a couple seasons out of that.
Yeah, I mean, especially given that Marty, when the DeLorean's coming straight at them, he is getting out of the way. Like, he's like, this isn't going to work.
I know the history here. Something's going to explode, or, yeah.
So what was your...
My favorite fan theory, and I don't remember all the particulars, but the main point is...
The DeLorean is alive?
No.
Okay.
Doc Brown is Marty.
Huh.
Making sure that he is able to get his parents back together.
Okay.
That he's built a separate, like another time machine, went back, lived in 1985, and mentored himself.
Right.
It was explained to me where it really made sense. And I was like, that is fascinating to me.
Yeah, and the only problem I have with that is, obviously, him and Jennifer are together in the future.
Yes,
so
yes.
what
I know it
there?
has, but I like it on the surface. It doesn't survive much analysis, but I like it on the surface, kind of as that's kind of cool, a cool way to look at it.
Yeah, and the other one, the one I just mentioned, the fact that the DeLorean is actually alive, and Doc somehow created this thing that has a soul, shall we say, is that the DeLorean malfunctioned at the correct point at certain times. It malfunctions after he gets to 1955 so that he doesn't just drive it into town. And it also malfunctions at the correct point and starts up again at the correct point so that he does hit the lightning. Because if he'd have gone when that alarm went off at the end of the first film, he would have missed it. So he wouldn't have gone back in time. So, I don't actually agree with that particular theory. It's just another one I saw in the ether.
What, kind of touching on the documentary again, what did you think then and maybe now of the DeLorean as a time machine? I know you're kind of a car guy, so... Sort of.
I will say the DeLorean, thanks to this film, has been one of the 3 cars from films that I want. Like, if money were no object.
Oh, okay. Eleanor from... Is that the correct name?
Eleanor, yeah.
Gone in 60 Seconds would be one. What is the third?
The third is actually...
Bumblebee from Transformers?
No.
You don't want a Transformer?
Okay, if I genuinely got Bumblebee,
yes,
then yes.
Okay.
But that Camaro, no. Not interested in the Camaro. No, I'm trying to think what it's and
did they make a Knight Rider movie?
They probably made a TV film of it. Yeah. No, it's the car that Don drives at the very end of Fast and Furious with the engine.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that style of car.
I think I would have DeLorean, Eleanor, and then the original Mad Max car.
Okay.
The Mel Gibson Mad Max car. Yeah.
I can see that. Now, would you want it to look identical to that, or do you want the car that they used in the filming?
Well, I mean, if we're shooting for things that are never going to happen, let's get the car that.
Okay, yeah.
If that survived, I have no idea, or how many
probably not.
Yeah, I'm sure multiples. They always have multiples, but
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure George Miller probably has one somewhere, but
yeah. Now, I genuinely don't know if I'd want to get a DeLorean and make it the Time Machine DeLorean, or if I just want.
I wondered
the DeLorean.
Watching the documentary. Is there a rift in the DeLorean community of purists that
has to be?
That think it should just look as DeLorean wanted it to look. And then the people that have converted it into the Time Machine DeLorean. They just you ruined your DeLorean.
I'd like to think, because they mentioned that the car company and the brand had failed at the time, which meant no more were being made. And so now the film has made people want to get it, which makes me think that there are probably more DeLoreans that exist now that are done as the Time Machine DeLorean than just regular DeLoreans.
So, watching that documentary, there's so much work. Like, the one guy did 4 years making his...
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have the patience for that. I just want it drivable and...
Yeah, there's actually one that drives around the town I live in, and every time I see it, I kind of want to just, throw a note at the guy. It's like, you ever want to get rid of the car?
I know. I saw like they pop up every now and then, like on that show Pawn Stars, and like the price was just outrageous that the guy wanted, and he's like, and it wasn't even in that good of shape. But,
I was like, not that
having
that
only about 5,000 left.
Yeah,
but yeah.
I believe they said in the documentaries 6,500 out of 9,000 ever made still exist, and they're fairly certain that's entirely because of this film.
Yes, yeah, like they said, if Ford Pinto, those would all be destroyed.
Yeah,
and rightfully so. But like one of the fans or fanatics says, that I was kind of of the same mind that he thought the DeLorean was created for the film, and I was, I'm going to let my 6-year-old or 7-year-old self get a pass on that because I thought it was made for the film as well. Like, I'm like, oh, that is the time machine car,
right.
And I didn't, like he said, learn until years later that it was first a car, and then like Marty says in the film, you made a DeLorean. I mean, kind of back to my original question: do you like the car itself, or do you like it because of what it represents in reference to Back to the Future? I mean, it's stainless steel, which had never been done, really.
No,
there's no,
and rightfully so.
Yes.
I believe...
The gull-wing doors,
There's a mention in the second film where Marty said, like, why don't we just land on top of it? It's like, that car would rip through this one like tissue paper. Just, no. Yeah, but, I mean, growing up in England, we didn't have the DeLorean. It wasn't there. So, I wasn't of the assumption that they made it for the film, but I also just didn't know anything about the car, period. So, I think I liked it because I was like, but as he says in the film, and I'm sure they wrote the line specifically so they could have it in there, like, if you're going to make a time machine out of a vehicle, why not do it with some style? It was perfect.
It is so quintessentially 80s that it needs to be in a time capsule, because you're like, okay, let's just break all rules, let's make it out of stainless steel, let's do gull-wing doors.
They could have had the two main characters from Weird Science stepping out at some point. It would have been like, yep, okay.
But I mean, I don't know if I've just convinced myself from loving the film so much that I actually like the aesthetic of the vehicle. But that's where I'm kind of at. Like, I like the angles on it. And
I will grant you that the car just by itself is not exactly a pretty car. It looks more like a car that you would expect a kid to have a miniature of. Like that, it just looked like they've blown up
a Hot Wheel
micro machine. They just blown them up and that's it. Whereas
like a concept car or
whatever. Exactly. Whereas the car as a time machine, that's the iconic look. So I don't think you can separate those two. I think it is just, you have the car, but the car is the time machine DeLorean. So
because that was my first introduction to it. Like, I didn't. So anything else that's just a DeLorean, and say, well, that's an incomplete time machine.
Yes.
It's just waiting to become a time machine.
Yeah, that's before Doc Brown got a hold of it.
Yeah. I kind of want to. Do you have a favorite moment or two from the first film?
From the first film, I don't know if it's a favorite moment,
sequence or line.
I just love every single time the modern day Doc and Marty are together.
Okay.
Like, just the way that Christopher Lloyd looks at Michael J. Fox at time, like I was saying earlier, when he steps away because the car's coming at him, and he just looks at Marty, looks down at the ground, and looks back at Marty, and then Marty just slowly starts sidling back in. It's like, he doesn't say anything, but he's like, "What are you doing? Get back here!" And it's the chemistry between them is fantastic.
Yeah, and so my answer is a little similar. I would say when they're going over the clock tower plan.
Let me guess. I didn't have much time. I'm sorry, it's not to scale.
Yes. Yeah, when they're going over that the model.
And,
perfect.
And Christopher Lloyd, the king of facial expressions as well. Just
like, ooh. Yeah, where the podcast is failing, but you all know what we're talking about. Yeah. Oh, God. I could watch that scene just on loop. I just want a GIF that. I'm sure there's one out there.
GIF, I believe you'll find. Let's not get into that.
GIF. Yeah. All right, we'll go back to it in a Giphy.
Hey, the person that created the thing itself said he would like it to be pronounced GIF.
Well, if anyone knows, Chris Hardwick and Will Wheaton have this discussion all the time, and I love it. But yes.
Yeah, I have no real trouble doing it either way.
Let's get back on track.
Yes, indeed.
Wherever that might be.
Yeah, I think we kind of
just like the second film, this podcast has no roads.
Yes, no roads. Just meh. Let's just run it
wildlessly. What did you think of the documentary overall?
Overall, the reason that I wanted to watch it was because, well, all new interviews from these people.
That was huge for me.
That's one of the things that you don't get much of now.
It's usually archival, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of, hey, we've uncovered this thing that we recorded 20 years ago, why don't you have a look at it? And what it actually is 3 minutes of that, surrounded by 10 minutes of other interviews you've already seen loads of.
And then half an hour of clips from the original.
Yeah, and then whoever's making the documentary just doing narration over it, so... but no, yeah, this was entirely new interviews with as many people as they could get a hold of. I was a little surprised that Crispin Glover didn't have something.
I would have loved to, gotten his thoughts.
And apparently I've heard that the guy that plays Biff Tannen...
Oh, he's so done with Back to the Future. Yeah, Tom Wilson.
Yeah, although I heard in the last year or so he's been, like, more into doing that stuff, although, yeah... It could just be capitalizing on the fact that it's the anniversaries. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a somewhat stand-up comedian / performer.
Yeah, singer.
And,
stuff, yeah.
Like, I know, like, he's, like, one of his bits or part of, he's like, how people, like, want him to leave, like, outgoing messages on their phones, like, same butthead.
Yeah.
So he, like, kind of addresses it to, like, not have to deal with it at the meet and greet.
Yeah,
after the shows. But.
There's a song that you can hear that he's put together where it's the questions he always gets from fans, and he's just put it to
kind
song.
Of, what I couldn't remember. Yeah, but you're right. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, it's like, what did you think of Christopher Lloyd? Kind of quiet. What did you think?
He was nice. Yeah, so I wasn't expecting any interviews with him, but...
it just would have been nice. Yeah, and
Leah Thompson's a little kooky, huh?
A little.
I mean, she seems nice enough.
Yeah.
But,
although, I think the person that's changed the most is probably the person that played Jennifer. Was that
with the one that it was her in the original Jennifer.
Yeah. She seemed a little...
She's a little spacey.
Just a little. Yeah, Leah Thompson... if you've seen, as I'm sure a lot of people have at this point, there are things where it's Back to the Future in 30 years and actually in 30 years, and you see that not only did they get it right, but they also went too far with a lot of these people, and it turns out that they're all, as some people would say, aging better than they had. But yeah, and it was just really weird to see all of these people now, and it is 30 years later, and it's like, okay, you look like you've aged 10 years. Michael J. Fox pretty much looked like he's barely aged at all, which is...
Pretty much, yeah.
I think Christopher Lloyd has definitely aged the most.
Yeah, you can definitely tell he really thinks carefully about what he's saying. Takes his time.
Which, fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, we're not that old. We don't know what that's like. So.
No, yeah. I mean, in the 80s, he was, 50s, 60s? Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I think it was in his, mid to late 40s in the first one, or if I don't know. I don't think he's quite 80 yet, but maybe he is. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not going to bother looking it up.
Yeah, it shows you the amount of research we did for this one.
Yes, and that will continue.
But yeah, I think overall, this documentary, it was great to see a proper, in-depth look at how the people involved felt around the making of the film and what happened after. Like, although the weirdest thing I found watching the documentary is you have all the stories of them trying to get the film made, making the film, and then within the last 10 years, people doing stuff. But there seemed to be a bit of a jump there.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, kind of my overall feelings, I definitely enjoyed it. When I don't usually try not to see things I don't enjoy unless I know it's going to be a Mordecai and get some laughs out of that.
Well, I mean, especially a documentary. You're not going to want to watch a documentary you're not going to like.
Exactly. So I do think the first third, while a lot of it was interesting, it was kind of tough to get through, I think, just because it was so slow.
It was slow.
And a lot of those people, the makers of the film, aren't very charismatic, other than Spielberg,
Yeah.
But
and some of the things they went over, if you've watched any of the special features from Back to the Future, you'll have heard, let's say, at least half of it before.
I did love, even though they didn't include the audio, I did love some of the Eric Stoltz scenes that they threw in. And then the comparisons to Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, it was interesting to see how, because they mentioned they filmed for 6 weeks with Eric Stoltz.
And that's does not happen. Like, I think Christopher Lloyd said, or so you're like, you just don't change the main character 6 weeks in.
Yeah, I think he says you don't come back from that.
You don't come back, which is why Eric Stoltz is not interviewed.
Yeah, I'd like to think that they approached him for an interview and they received a 2-word answer. The second
I think
being
they received a 2-finger answer.
Yeah, it's not probably. I mean, I really don't know. Maybe he saw the film and genuinely was like, okay,
but I mean,
did it better.
Zemeckis says, like, he knew it wasn't working, but kept telling himself it was, or but I mean, you gotta. You're the director. You gotta do what's best for the movie, as hard as that is. And with Eric Stoltz in there, it would not have survived today.
No, obviously
it's tough to imagine what that whole film would have been.
Yeah,
because we can only picture Michael J. Fox as Marty. But
now, I'll grant you, based on the footage we saw, he looks more like Crispin Glover's son than Michael J. Fox does.
Yes.
So he has that going for him.
Yes.
But, well, whatever.
And should we ask the question back to the biggest plot hole in the entire franchise is why doesn't his mom recognize him as the kid that got him to fall in love with George? Well, oh, that's my son. They are identical to that guy that was in our high school for a little while.
Well, there's a couple of different things going around with that. The one that I kind of like to run with is that they do, and as in, obviously not the original one, because that isn't them, but when he comes back, they do know that it was him. For instance,
when they have slave Biff and they're rich.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because when his brother and sister are just kind of like, what the hell's the matter with you? What's going on? And they're just like, oh, get up, son, it's fine. Like, they're just a little too, oh, it's okay, he's just right on that. And then also the idea that, they would definitely remember that. So, like, they must have put 2 and 2 together at one point and just figured out, oh, okay, so our son is with that crazy professor that's doing a lot of sciencey things. This guy from back then was doing these weird things. And then, so there's that, and I kind of like to think, like, okay, they know. But then
I suppose I can roll with that.
Yeah, but the other theory that everyone's running around is he is in their lives for 1 week. There is no photographic evidence of him being around, and Marty is born 7 years later, and he's only looking like him when he's 14, 15 years old. Like, would you remember someone you only met for 1 week? Like, would you remember exactly what they looked like?
Well, if you had a crush on him and you were trying to make out with him in the car, and
I suppose,
and he convinced you to go with George to the dance, I don't know. I think I would remember that, but...
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You remember that someone did that, but would you remember exactly what they looked like?
I think when I saw my son grown up and I think it'd come back.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think if you look at it, George would be the most likely to remember. I think because you got teenage infatuation. It's very different.
George would be thinking wait, did she had to have had an affair? Yeah. She found that guy in modern day and had an affair.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's a dead ringer for that kid.
Yeah. Although, given how George is, I think he's more likely to come up with the idea that that actually might be him. Especially given that he turns up that day dressed how he left. So they're gonna come home from wherever the hell it is they were early in the morning and be like, dead ringer for that guy.
What are you doing here? Yeah, you haven't aged today. Yeah.
I'm fine with any fan theory, really. I also just I don't care.
It's just a testament exactly to the film stuff is that other thing that would be deal breakers in other films, like those what can be considered huge plot holes. Yeah. But the writing and the acting are just so much fun that you're willing to overlook those kind of things for me.
And especially given, I believe it's mentioned within the first 10-15 minutes, is that this film is totally different to every single screenwriting course you're ever going to take. In that the protagonist has no arc.
It's Dan Harmon, right? That explained.
I think so.
I loved every bit of his interview.
He
learns nothing.
He learns nothing. He has no apparent desires other than the car.
Yeah.
Which he just ends up getting because alternate them was able to get for him. So that's basically all his worries have disappeared just because of something that accidentally happened. So definitely the second and third ones give him arcs. Yeah. But the first one, there is no goal other than fixing something he broke. That's
They say it should be studied in screenwriting classes and film schools. It's an anomaly, really.
Yeah. Which then begs the interesting question: if it is one of those things that somehow just worked, is it possible to recreate that with a totally different story, or would it just not be people obviously ripping off Back to the Future, but just not saying that?
I gotta go with Spielberg. It was lightning in a bottle. I really think it was just so many things coming together. The lovable charisma of Michael J. Fox and the comedic expertise of Christopher Lloyd, a really good director in Zemeckis, an excellent screenwriter. Yeah. All that, and great 80s score. Shout out to Huey Lewis, of course, and Alan Silvestri. Everything just came together. And that's one of those things I didn't really notice initially, is that, he doesn't really go on a personal growth journey as every protagonist should. Yeah.
I'll be perfectly honest.
Same punk kid at the end that he was in the beginning.
I mean, I've gone through film school, and I've been, I did film studies for my degree. I've sat through the lectures, and I sit down and watch films now, and I pay no attention to whether or not the protagonist learns something. I'm paying more attention to whether or not it makes sense. And this film completely makes sense.
Yeah, okay, you're logic jumps.
It's more like, is the character believable rather than does he learn from his experience? It's more just, would this person act the way that he does? And Marty McFly, very much, he goes back in time, accidentally changes something, and I will fight tooth and nail on this. Someone was talking to me about the whole Twin Pine, Lone Pine Mall thing, and I was pointing out that him coming back to Lone Pine Mall rather than Twin Pine Mall means that he comes back to a completely different timeline and a different dock than he left. And this person I was talking to was saying, no, the reason that Doc became friends with Marty was because of the letter that Marty left there. And I was just like, no.
No. You're wrong.
Yeah,
I'm right.
Wrong. Yeah, but I've completely lost my train of thought. What the hell was I talking about?
I don't know. Let's save it with, what is the name of the Armenians? The something brothers.
Yeah.
Once again, no research.
Yeah,
Yes.
zero research for this one.
But
We actually have just come straight from watching this. So.
Yes, the documentary.
Yeah.
I want to say Fratelli's and that's Goonies.
Well, I can tell you it's not the Scoleri brothers.
You're close with it, though. Yeah,
No, yeah.
Scolari or something. You're in the
that's-
ballpark.
No, that's Ghostbusters.
That's Ghostbusters. Okay, never mind. But yes, it's but
yeah.
I remember that scene the first couple times always frightened the shit out of me. It
Really?
was very violent. Well, you got to remember I was 7, 8.
I suppose.
I suppose, you giant pussy.
Well, I think I've always had the disconnect between filmed and reality. I've always been able to do that.
And I connect emotionally on all levels more with film than I do reality. So I don't really.
If someone was gunned
cry
down
real
in
life
front
too
of
much.
you, you'd be, okay.
What? Wow, I didn't realize there'd be that much blood.
Films have lied to me.
But end of Gladiator, I need a box of Kleenex. So yeah, go figure. But yeah, I don't know that. Like I'm really heightened by that.
And yeah, the reason why Brian wants a box of Kleenex at the end of Gladiator is left up to you.
For tears, Paul.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there an alternate ending? I swear.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm genuinely surprised you didn't get where I was going with it. But all right.
I think I did. I'm just not getting what I would have that to do about. But I mean, I loved the film, but I didn't love.
You didn't love it that much. Okay.
Yeah, as if we're all on the same track here.
Yes, we are. Okay.
I'm like, yeah, there was a couple scenes early on, but yeah. The Queen was pretty hot, but yeah. Her Empress, whatever. Yes. Sister. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever. This is not Gladiator cast.
Well, that's good, because I wouldn't have anything to say about it.
Exactly. Did you come up with what you were talking about, sir?
I did not.
You did not. Well, I guess we're screwed.
Yep.
Bye.
This will have to be one of the alternate timelines that got destroyed by the various time travels.
Oh, yes.
So there we go.
We should edit this Pulp Fiction style. Just put the center at the beginning and the middle at the end, and
Ooh, that would be an interesting one. Maybe
piece it together.
Tell you what, how about we talk about, for our next film for Thor after the one we do, let's talk about Pulp Fiction in order that it happens in Pulp Fiction, and I will edit it into chronological order, and we'll put that out.
I think I understood that. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
That could be fun and incredibly annoying at the same time. All right.
Fun for us, annoying for you.
Yes.
If any of this is making it into the podcast. Okay.
All right.
Where do you want to go now?
I don't know. Well,
Or when? Time travel jokes. I'm the worst.
Well, I wasn't going to say. But yeah. Well, I think we should really start getting into, like, is there anything that you felt was missing in the documentary?
I know this is... I'm always contradictory is what I want to say. But I said earlier, I'm bad in, like, film documentaries. I think they include too many scenes from the film. I could have stood a little more. I thought they were very sparse. The actual cut tos. I think I kind of like when they edit in a scene that kind of goes along with whatever the talking head was just saying, or it's kind of a setup and a punchline type edit.
Or when they're talking about it and they have something that really sums it up, playing that with the dialogue over it. Yeah,
I mean, there were
there was some
enough, and I was. Like I said, happy. They did say they will release all of that Eric Stoltz footage someday. Hopefully, will be in like a 4-pack with this documentary, like a Blu-ray. I know that'd be probably pretty soon. That would be coming out, but
yeah. I mean,
But I did enjoy the at least. Go ahead.
I'd like to think that what would happen there is that Zemeckis and Gale have said that there will never be another Back to the Future until they're dead. I think that linked in with that is that footage will never be released until they are dead.
Oh, that's what you took that to mean?
I think so. I think what will happen is once they're dead, they can no longer be blamed for it, to their faces. So they'll go, "Here you go." Like you can watch it to your heart's content now, and you can't say anything to me. I won't be able to.
And
hear
we also
you.
have no idea if there are legal issues binding that, or if Eric Stoltz has anything.
There has to be something,
Yeah.
like actually stopping them. I think like that.
I think because otherwise, why wouldn't they? Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, you would have seen more than. Like I think this documentary featured everything I'd ever seen from Eric Stoltz and more.
All right. Yeah.
The only thing that they didn't show, which I find very odd, is him running into the DeLorean, which actually is in the film. The scene of Marty running from the front of the van, diving into the DeLorean, that is footage of Eric Stoltz doing it.
Oh, yeah.
It's just because he's got the hazmat suit on, you can't tell it's not Michael J. Fox.
Yes. I don't know. Like I think I touched on it earlier. You said things lacking. Like I said, the first third, when they're talking about the making of the film, while it had a lot of good information, it still kind of lacked any kind of charm or, like I said earlier, charisma. I could have done with some more Spielberg because he is endlessly fascinating to listen to.
Yeah. Although I think when it comes down to it, if you actually listen to what they were saying and the stuff, he wasn't hugely involved in this film.
No, he wasn't. He was more of like, a mentor type figure.
Yeah,
but his recall, like all of these directors, like Scorsese, him, like he knows what he was doing that week. He knows, like, because they're always working.
Yeah.
So, but he's like, I was working on Jaws and doing this, and like I had this time. Yeah, but I just love listening to any interviews with him or any of these Mount Rushmore directors, I kind of call them. But that's kind of my major critique. I did really, really, really love the fan section. Although you said it's kind of just recently, but how it's positively affected people's lives.
Yeah.
Was it muscular dystrophy? Yeah, or
cerebral palsy.
Cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
That
and he has a
touching.
specific type of cerebral palsy that I don't remember.
Yes, but he only has like full control of his like left arm.
Yeah.
And that, and then the couple that drives around the DeLorean. I thought all of that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, although, and I believe I said it to you at the time, they said that they have driven to all 50 states, and my response to that was, how did you get to Hawaii?
That had to go on a cargo ship, and that had to cost them a lot of money.
They specifically said they'd driven to 50 states.
Didn't they?
Well, they said they've driven it. They might have said driven it in 50 states, but they also said the word to somewhere.
Okay, because you can drive in, you just can't drive to it.
Yeah, unless what they did was they left the motor running while it was on the ship, and then drove off the ship.
I don't know. Yeah, but that'd be expensive as hell to create that.
Yeah,
ship. But
which I also one thing that they never explain, and I wouldn't expect them to actually explain the finances of these two people.
Oh yeah, because they expected him to.
Yeah, basically, the guy, for one reason or another, and I'm not going to say just watch the documentary.
I'm sure you have. Yes,
he has a certain amount of time to live given by doctors in the year 2000. So they were like, okay, bucket list. We want the DeLorean. We want to do all that. Yeah. And now they drive around and they're volunteers.
Yeah. And they maxed out a credit card that has an undisclosed very high balance. Enough for them to purchase a DeLorean.
Enough for them to buy a DeLorean and make it into the homemade time machine type thing. And now their job is to go
now they're in financial ruin.
Yeah, they're volunteers.
And they're suing that doctor for that 6-month estimate.
Maybe that's how they did it.
That's how he lived. He's still living. This was like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, they didn't want to go into that's how they got the money, maybe.
Yeah, that's a little messy. But I wanted that myself. I'm like, obviously, very happy he's still alive, as they are.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they just kind of, okay, well, he's going to die. We might as well max out this credit card. And it's kind of like, at least Kevin Smith had the, well, if the film fails, then I'm screwed. But if the film works, then I can pay it off.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think he was fully prepared for it not to work.
Yes.
It was like, I think he said before that had the film not worked, he would still be there working to pay off the debts.
For sure, yeah. Just the interest rate, I'm sure. All right, this is not Clerks. So we will do that another time.
Yes.
I'm sure. Where are we at? We should probably get wrapping up here.
I think so.
Final thoughts, Jerry Springer style.
All right, well, you go first then. What are your final thoughts on this documentary?
Final thoughts on the documentary. I'll go over both here.
Okay.
Final thoughts on the documentary. It's definitely the source material is the appeal for this documentary.
Yep.
If I'm rating it as a documentary on its own, how it was done, I'd say it's an average documentary.
Okay.
With the Back to the Future content,
Yes.
that being that obviously this documentary rides on nostalgia, rightfully so.
Yeah. And that's the film does.
Yes.
I think.
Very good point. Paul and I were discussing, we can't really use our normal rating system, which many of you might be thankful for. What do all these negative numbers mean?
Well, I was describing to someone at work how rating system works, and his response was, "That's a very negative rating system."
We're very negative people.
In both contexts of the word, yes, I suppose you're right.
I think it's very optimistic. Or by our logic, every film starts out perfect.
Yes, exactly.
And then immediately goes downhill.
Yes.
Yes, if you're Dredd or Mordecai or Chappie.
Poor Chappie.
Poor Chappie. He's dead. Okay. Not even going to go there. But I would give it somewhere between strong and average recommendation.
I think I know what you're tripping up on here, which is if you are a Back to the Future fan, you need to see the documentary.
Yes. There is enough in there that is worthwhile. If
you have never seen Back to the Future, you can get around to it. I wouldn't know why you would watch this then. But yes, I would give it a soft, slightly above average recommendation. Yeah.
Back to the Future itself, like it's mentioned in the documentary, I think it does stand alone along with those iconic films from the 80s. Yeah. Ghostbusters.
The other one was.
What else did they mention? But just those films that just defined kind of a moment, and everyone kind of remembers that time in their lives. Yeah. Not necessarily because of that film, but it helps ground them in that time.
Yeah, very much so. I think it's one of those films that works in that it was set in modern day for the time. Mm-hmm. So it just works whenever you pick it up. The only thing you might run into is, that technology isn't exactly the same as I'm used to now. And I think the only thing you see outside of the stuff they made up is the television. That's the only thing that ages it, really, is that the television they have in their house is one of the old box set ones, because they just didn't have any others.
I'm just thinking of the line in 1955. No one has. He's lying. No one has two TVs.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I live by myself. I have two. I'd have more if I had more rooms.
Yeah, so I think someone could see it now and wouldn't have any issue with identifying with either Marty or George or someone else, because it is entirely focused on the characters rather than the setting, which is odd because the setting is a huge part of it when it goes back in time.
Yes, every time I do watch it, I do try to figure. I do get kind of stumped on. I think I get my head around the time travel, and then I ask myself another question, and then I'm all back at square one again. But I just need to enjoy it as it is, because it really is so iconic, and one of those, like I said, it just really showed me how magical film can be.
Yeah.
And part of my love of film, this with Jurassic Park and, those kind of genre-defining movies.
Yeah.
And Jaws and Goonies, for me. Those films that you see when you're young and impressionable that just I don't care. It has flaws, like they say. But there's so much going for it that I don't care about them.
Yeah, that's the thing. The things where they say, like, a shot or two might be slightly out of focus or anything like that. It's like, that you roll with it. You don't care.
And it comes back to what I say all the time on podcasts. It starts with writing. And the script is brilliant. So you got good writing, you're going to have, obviously things can go off the trail with casting. Yeah. We talked about that still. But that's the first thing. And it shows, and that's why it holds up to me.
Yeah, and for me, I think this film, even if for nothing else, I cannot thank this film enough for introducing me to Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox. Those two have become, when I think of watching films and TV growing up, it's like, I remember Doc Brown, and I remember Marty McFly. And now, having grown up and seen other films, especially from around that time. Clue, for instance, it's just fun to see Christopher Lloyd in Clue.
Oh my god, he's so great. Everyone's so great in Clue, but especially him.
And then Spin City became one of my favourite shows to watch after school because of Michael J. Fox. And it was just... I find this film is, through so many different ways, the gateway to so many other great things, and should definitely be looked at as sort of the staple of this type of thing. If you're looking for time travel, try and make it about the characters or the time travel.
Yes, and not about the science. Yeah.
Because the further you go into the science, unless you're Primer, where you do not dumb it down at all, then you're going to run into roadblocks. And in terms of the documentary, as I said, if you are a fan of the Back to the Future films, watch the documentary. If you've never watched the Back to the Future film, number one, why are you listening to this? Number two...
No, I think number one in general, why are you listening?
Just why? Why? Tell us why, please. Yeah. And number two, it's worth a watch just because if you like documentaries in general, you find out some interesting things about how the studios were running back then, and also you hear about the original car, the A car as they called it, and how it was treated.
Yes.
It's really interesting to see how some of these things can end up. I was, and I know we need to wrap up, but I was very surprised that they didn't mention the fact that the old studio lot that had the town burned down.
Yeah, because the original clock tower they've since remade it to have on that back lot, but yes, that
it's
was destroyed in a fire. Yeah,
such a shame.
Yes, but I was at Universal before that A car was restored, and I was very young, but I do remember. I don't remember being quite as in shambles as it became, but
I think I don't know if I have been since it was restored. I think I went probably.
I would love to see it again.
Yeah, I think I was there maybe while it was being restored, so it wasn't really out. So I must have missed it. But yeah,
if you get the chance, yes, go check it. Oh my gosh, yes, I want to go back there and see it again. All right.
Well, I don't think we can really talk too much more about it without just telling you what is in the documentary. So
no, or just going scene by scene through the movie.
Which I found very interesting when it comes to documentaries. How much can you talk about a documentary without just simply spoiling the documentary?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it is spoilable.
No,
really.
Without getting the transcript for the documentary, I think.
Guess what? They talk about the movie a lot. Okay.
Shocker.
Spoiler. Okay. All right. So, where you give a soft recommendation? Strongly recommend? I think you may have said already. If you're a fan,
I would say, depending on whether or not you like the film, strongly recommend you watch it, or just get around to it when you can. One of those two.
It is a decently well done documentary. I'll say
yes.
That.
Okay. Well made.
Well made. Good stuff. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that'll be it from us. I know. As I said at the beginning, do find us, talk to us, /follow us, whatever you want to do on Twitter at BlokeBusters, facebook.com/BlokeBuster, email us blokebusterpodcast@gmail.com, and if you really want to, you don't have to, but it would be nice, have a look at our website, blokebusters.webs.com. So, I've been Paul.
I've been Brian.
See you, folks.
Bye.